Hey everyone, this is Ken Davison, and you are listening to the eFed podcast with Mikey Unlikely.
To the eFed podcast, the podcast exploring our fantasy wrestling hobby, where the wrestling is written, but the characters are real. Hey everybody, welcome back to the eFed podcast here on the Atomic Dropcast Network. So thankful you could join us today. My name is Mikey Unlikely, and I'm your host. Of course, I'm joined by the co-host with the most, the producer, the best producer, as some would say.
Hey!
We've got Brian on the track. Brian, how we doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm hanging out, having fun. Episode 89, Brian.
89! Jesus!
We're so far into the show. It's a great feeling, and I'm so glad each and every one of you are listening. And Brian, today on the show, we're going to be interviewing Ken. Ken is the handler behind Godly Ken Davison, and he's been handling events like the UGWC, SCW, and High Octane Wrestling in the past. And we're going to have Ken on the show today. And Brian, Ken was a pretty fun interview.
I'll take your word for it. I mean, I will hear it before anyone else does, but I have not heard it yet. But I look forward to it.
Yeah, Ken is he's a fun guest. He's got a great story, and he's been in the game a long time, just like the both of us. And speaking of both of us, Brian, you're up next.
Oh,
here
shit.
On the eFed podcast. It's time. It's Brian time.
Oh!
Not only that, but we will be doing it live on Twitch, the first ever live eFed podcast interview. I'm excited to bring it to you. So guys, today we're talking to Ken, but before we do, we're going to talk about eFed tees, Brian.
Oh, hey. Fantastic guys over there. I mean, that designer.
Can't beat him. Designer, also named Brian. Really odd coincidence.
Right? I mean, very, very common name for the 80s.
Very, very. And check out the guy on the Twitter machine, the guy running the promotions, the guy chatting on Discord, Mikey. He's a swell fellow as well.
Also pretty common name for the 80s.
There you have it, guys. So, Brian's dating me a little bit, but no. It's true. If you guys want a t-shirt with your character, your tag team, your stable, your fed, it doesn't matter. If you want your catchphrase on a t-shirt,
at this point, anything, just hit us up. We're open. Like we'll make new categories for you. Like,
that's right. efedtees.com, ewtees.com. Number one eFed t-shirt store on the internet, catering especially to you. It's very specific niche, very specific genre, but I tell you what, quality products, quality people, and quality prices, Brian.
We make almost nothing. I showed someone recently what we make, and they're like, holy shit, why do you do it? I was like, I'm not sure.
For the community, Brian, for the community.
Hit us up.
There you have it, guys. Check it out, EWTs, eFed Tees, at eWrestling Tees on Twitter. And we're there. We're happy to help you. Let us know what you're trying to do. If you need a custom design, if you're like, hey, I'm not a graphics person, I know someone who is. His name is Brian. He's right here, and he's ready to help you. All right, guys, let's get into the interview with Ken. I'm excited to bring it to you.
But first,
here's a word from our sponsors. The eFed podcast is a totally free podcast that drops each and every single week for your e-wrestling ears on a multitude of apps. If you'd like to support the show, however, the best way to do so is over at patreon.com/eFed podcast. For as little as $3 a month, you can support both Brian and myself as we crank out more e-wrestling content with perks such as early releases and special Discord designations. And if that's not enough EW action for you, jump up to the $10 a month tier and you can get a free EWTs t-shirt design, early and ad-free editions of the show, as well as access to our monthly Q&As, bad graps, and more. And if you'd like to be a sponsor on the show and get your ad played, the best way to do that is the sponsor level on Patreon, with all of the previous perks plus weekly commercials on the show. Check it out over at patreon.com/efedpodcast. We greatly appreciate your consideration.
Occupy Pro Wrestling, putting the smart back into smart mark since 2012, with a community on Discord and message boards, merchandise, a weekly vodcast on Twitch, and much more. Check out everything from us and our site partners at occupyprowrestling.com.
eFed Tees, the #1 source for eFed merchandise, offering custom merchandise made for your wrestler, tag team, stable, or eFed. Whether you want a high-quality t-shirt, face mask, hoodie, hat, it doesn't matter. We can help you out over at efedtees.com. Do you have a custom logo for your wrestler? Awesome. We're going to slap it on a shirt and help you out real fast. If not, no problem at all. We have a custom design service too. You can work with a graphic artist to get the perfect design made for your character. Go on over to ewtees.com and click on Want a Shirt to get your shirt started. efedtees.com.
For over a decade, Defiance Wrestling has redefined what an E-Fed can be. An angle fed with a rich history and a colorful cast of characters, Defiance Wrestling offers a drama-free environment with some of the most experienced and talented writers in the history of the game, with a level of consistency that few other promotions can offer. With on-time events, micro offerings, and even a long-form in-character radio show, as well as a forum home on the classic fwrestling.com, nobody, I said it, nobody does fantasy wrestling quite like Defiance. Come, see what all the buzz is about. Come check out DefianceWrestling.com. You heard me. It's DefianceWrestling.com. I'll see you there.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of the eFed Podcast interview series. Today we're joined by Ken. Ken is the handler behind Godly Kent Davison. He's been in feds like the UGWC, SCW, and High Octane Wrestling. Ken, how are you doing today?
Doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to have you on the show. I know you've been signed up for a while, and I appreciate your patience while we got through that schedule.
Yeah, it's something I've been looking forward to. Been doing this long time, and so there's probably a lot of ground to cover, and should be fun.
I'm excited for it. So, Ken, let's talk about the beginning, back before e-wrestling. When did you become a fan of wrestling, and who were some of your favorite wrestlers early on?
As long as I can remember, it's kind of hard to say. The first big show I remember watching was WrestleMania 3.
Okay.
A lot of kids in my generation were all sucked in by Andre and Hulk, but for me, it was Savage and Steamboat.
Okay.
Just something about the psychology behind that just really resonated with me as a kid. And they were always two of my favorites. But I even have memories going back before that, watching like the NWA on TBS. The Midnight Express especially sticks out in my head. I know I'm going into the Wayback Machine, but I remember Misty Blue Sims even. And so it goes back quite a ways to like when I was like 4 or 5 years old.
That's awesome.
And I just kind of got sucked in and have been a fan ever since.
That's cool. So were your parents into it, or how'd you get introduced? Just flipping through the TV, or what?
No, my best friend's mother was really super into Hulk Hogan.
Okay.
And just from hanging out with him, she'd have it on the TV, and we kind of all just started sitting around and watching it, and that
led to
so
your fandom.
I guess it's kind of just by osmosis.
Well, that's cool too, though. So you still watch wrestling today?
As much as I can. I'm really more of a fan of the athletic side of it. So I do tend to DVR so I can skip through a lot of the segments. But I watch your standard WWE, NXT, NXT UK, Rampage, Dynamite. I'll catch up on the YouTube shows sometimes. Impact, they just started showing New Japan on AXS again. So I started watching those as well, and just try to catch AAA. Just whatever I can take, I will watch.
No, I know that how that goes. I got these like little free cable streaming services, and sometimes there's like whole channels dedicated to wrestling that I can't normally watch, and I try to catch it when I can. I mean, it's Mexican wrestling, maybe it's Japanese wrestling, but you gotta get the content where you can, right?
Absolutely.
So that's cool. Well, let's talk about like your Mount Rushmore of wrestlers. Who's on your top four all time?
In a lot of ways, it kind of depends on the criteria.
Okay.
For me, entertainment wise, Owen Hart is probably my be all end all. Barry Horowitz is actually on my Mount Rushmore. And it was explained to me once when I was younger, before I'd even heard the term jobber. I heard them referred to as carpenters.
Yes.
Because men like Barry Horowitz would go out there and they would build stars. And I always kind of respected that, especially with the longevity he had in doing it.
Yeah.
That was something that I always appreciated. Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels, which is funny because I actually didn't discover him till after I started the whole godly character.
Okay.
And saw him for the first time in the ECWA Super 8 out in Delaware back in, I think it was 99, the second year he won it, I think it was.
Okay.
That I first saw him. And then my fourth Mount Rushmore, I would have to say Raven.
Nice. That's a good answer.
Because especially after, if you can get your hands on it, I recommend it. But his TNA DVD, as one of the extras, there's a match. I can't remember which member of AMW it's with. I think it was with Chris Harris.
Okay.
But he's breaking down why he's doing each move and the psychology behind it. And again, with me being into Savage Steamboat and the psychology there, I really, really dug that commentary from him. And that was what won me over as one of his fans.
Raven's a great, insightful wrestler to listen to, whether it's a podcast or, like you said, one of the videos or shoot interviews or whatever, even in the TNA highlights. He's a gem, I think, even after he retired from wrestling.
Yeah, and he still gets involved here and there with, you'll hear various wrestlers just being like, oh yeah, and I was talking to Raven, and just he seems to be just a wealth of knowledge.
Absolutely. Okay, well, let's talk about e-wrestling. How and when did you find this weird game we play?
I found it originally September 1996.
Wow, early on.
Oh yeah, in the AOL chat rooms, the WWE AOL chat room.
Okay.
And I originally started because back then there weren't too many original character feds.
Right.
So I actually, being a fan of Lucha Libre, decided to start playing La Parka, which was great because he didn't speak English.
Yep.
So I could portray it any way I wanted to.
Okay.
And it was rough in the beginning. I don't really have that many memories of doing all too much with it. But after a few months, maybe not even 2 months, I found my first original character fed.
Yeah.
And it was Cybernetic Wrestling Federation Squared.
Oh, wow.
And it was run by a guy by the name of Lex Victor. And I just will never forget it, maybe because it was the first fed where I was using a fictional character. But to this day, I still remember the macro code, the Alt 0178 to make that squared symbol because we did it so much.
Yeah.
And my first character there was a character by the name of Tons of Fun.
Okay.
And it was a horrible, horrible gimmick looking back at it. But it was basically an overgrown man-child came to the ring wearing pajamas, gifted a teddy bear to a fan like Bret Hart with his sunglasses. And that, getting booked my first match against no one. So, of course, I won that. And then I proceeded to drop the next three.
Oh, well, rough introduction to your first original character.
Well, yeah, but in the same time, it gave me a lot of insight because part of my personal background is that I had actually, when I turned 18, started training to become a wrestler. and I got hit by a car during my senior year of high school, which messed up my back. And so that took that off the table.
Sorry to hear that,
So
buddy.
when I discovered the e-wrestling and the e-fetting, and I started losing these matches, I'm just like, couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. So I decided that it's like I had built up this character in my head. You know, Ken Davison is my government name. It just seemed to work for me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this character. I'm going to move him into this writing and see if I can make it work. And so in the most dramatic fashion ever, the character had a valet who was also his fiance, and I had her on my character's birthday killed by a drunk driver.
Ouch.
Because I had to find something drastic to move this happy-go-lucky character who is all just like, I'm just happy to be here whether I've won or lost, and to give him some kind of an edge.
I see. Okay.
And then it kind of coalesced with about the time I started discovering ECW. It was after they had switched over to Extreme, and they were starting to give you those edgier storylines. And so it's like, okay, this is being presented to me. How can I use something similar?
Yeah.
And I went through about a month where I was role playing, but not booked for matches. And it worked out really well because I was able to go through that transformation of the character. And I really was a long, drawn out character arc with, okay, well, there's supposed to be this kind and loving God. Why would he take, my love for me? Why would he take this from me, that from me? And in a fit of arrogance and anger, decided, well, I'm going to be in control of my own fate. I'm going to be my own God. And that was the genesis of the character.
Well, it's pretty deep for the beginning of an EFED character. And obviously you carried that character all the way to today.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess I'm just, especially if you ask my ex-wife, I'm very good at being a cold, heartless, bitter bastard. But yeah, I managed to carry the character throughout. I'm on year 26 of the character now, which is scary to do that math. And I would say for about 23 years of it, I ran steady as a heel. The only exception was in the early 2000s, I was in a fed. They were around for a few years called Steelside Wrestling. And just somehow I went in as a heel. And the other writer who was really on my level, my friend Seamus, he's retired, unfortunately, but he ran a character named Mr. Popular. And just somehow we became rivals, and I somehow magically became like the face of the company leading the charge again. And I still don't know how that happened.
Hey,
to this day, I have yet to figure it out.
You get two heels together long enough and someone's going to become the baby face.
And that somehow turned out to be me. And I had a good run there, won the world title a few times. When I left their company for a bit, had real life going on, and came back for their last show and ended up against Mr. Popular, very fitting. We went to a draw, which was kind of bittersweet because I had never managed to beat Mr. Popular.
And even at the last show, just draw.
Yeah, it was weird because there was another character there that I didn't interact with as much, who went by the name Pac, which was short for Punk Ass Canadian. So different Pac than we're used to today.
Yes,
obviously.
different one, yeah, much different.
And it was like rocks, paper, scissors. Pac couldn't beat me. I couldn't beat Popular. Popular couldn't beat Pac. So I really think we should have had a triangle match or a triple threat for that last match.
One definitive winner, yeah.
And it probably still would have been a draw, to be honest. But I think it would have been really fitting.
Well, it sounds like it was a fitting end to that fed if that was indeed their last show ever.
I feel like it was. And just being there from the beginning and for most of their run, that was one of the companies, I know it's not really a company, but in my head, I just
I
kind of
gotcha. Yeah.
kayfabe it, I guess. But yeah, that really stuck with me. And as I said, I'm here almost 20 years later, and I'm still friends with Seamus on a personal level. So that one really sticks out to me too.
It's always really cool. The thing about e-wrestling is you find, obviously, we all have similar interests. We're all into wrestling. We're all into writing and being creative ourselves. The cool thing is finding those friends, hanging on to them, and building real relationships over a fake game.
Yeah, it's a friend of mine who I'll probably end up mentioning a little more later when we get to more like what I'm doing now. But my friend Lou, he currently runs the virtual championship wrestling streaming fed on Twitch.
Okay.
And I have known him for 24 years now. So yeah, and the bonds run deep. He's helped me out in real life when I've been in jams, and I've been there for him. And that's probably why I'm still in the game, is the friends I've made. It's not even the writing at this point.
It's got to be, right? Yeah. And then you get the two together. You're writing with your friends, and that's the best part of everything. So, let's talk about what happens next for Godly Ken Davison.
What happens next? That I'm not sure of. My character now, in its current incarnation, I'm running him as kind of a conflicted face, is a good way to put it.
Okay.
I'm currently, prior to being in UGWC and now SCW, I was in Carnage Wrestling for a year and a half up until they closed.
Okay.
And I got involved in a storyline there where I was working with Amber Ryan, who's pretty well known, especially amongst the female writers. And she's one of the actual women that's handling a woman character, which is always nice to see.
Right.
So I started working with my friend Jazzy on that, and she whooped my ass. I'll put it right out there. She decimated me, but we decided, okay, this was fun working together. Let's see what we can do. And she was part of a stable called Paragon. And so when I lost to her, she ended up winning the World Championship number one contendership.
Okay.
Which at the time was being held by her stable's leader. So that kind of set up friction with them. But also I decided in character that I wanted to get her back, because I've never, as a handler, I don't care. I have fun. It's whatever. But in character, I do not like to lose. It's just one thing that's always been a quirk with my characters. If I lose, I have to get that back. And so I decided.
All right, Hulkster.
Yeah, it kind of in a way is, but it's Hulkster.
You know something, Ken. No, okay, go ahead.
So what I decided to do was, there was 4 members of her stable, and I decided that I wanted to dismantle the stable one by one. And one of the members of her stable was a character named Kyra Johnson, who was handled by my friend Barb.
Okay.
And it's one of those, it's going to sound like a soap opera without the murders. Kyra was at the time dating the world champion, aka the head of her stable. And I don't know what possessed him out of character to do it, but there's 2 months between pay-per-views and that fed. So he decided he was going to take 2 months off till his next title defense. And I, being the slime ball heel that I am, got into her ear, but instead of lying to her, I had my character tell her all these truths. And so we got to a point where I got my world title match, and I ended up finally beating Amber Ryan, because something working with her, I stepped up my game. I went from writing 2,000 word role plays to 4,000 word role plays. And it was just, it flowed. It wasn't a struggle. It wasn't filler. And it's probably some of my best writing in my career. So I ended up eventually defeating every member of the stable, taking the world title, and somehow Ken, the character, and Kyra ended up getting together on a personal level, and we're still rolling with that now. And through it, somehow I allowed the character to be humanized. And so this is where the conflict as a face comes in, because it's like, okay, I've got 23 years of running as a heel. How do I do this on purpose?
How do I be nice? How do I...
And you see it more in UGWC because I've been there longer. But one of my big things is Ken really struggles because as a tag team, Kyra and Ken, collectively, we chose the name Baltimore Elite because that's where Carnage was based out of.
Okay.
But the way that happened was we are actually undefeated as a tag team. We're 5-0. Now, we've had matches where we've had other partners. We haven't won all of those. In singles, my record there is horrendous. I think it's like 2-6 or something like that. I went from being a world champion to the next company struggling.
Yeah.
And I know it's just, writing subjective. It's, my work's going to be viewed differently there than it was in Carnage, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I just want to be able to tell the story, and I think that actually having that lack of success has given me a lot of depth. So we just won the cooperative titles there. I've only just recently won the SCW Internet Championship. So I think what's next going forward is I've got something planned for the next SCW show that I don't want to spoil because I don't know if it'll go up before this is aired. But I'm trying to mold the two together where Ken's more of a face in UGWC and I'm technically, I think, like a heel in Sin City. But what I'm trying to do is meld the two in almost like a Punisher type of character.
Okay.
Where I'm going to use all these horrible heelish tactics.
Yeah.
But I'm going to aim them at those who would do them to me first.
Yeah, it's for the better good. Yeah.
Yeah, which I'm to look at it in Dungeons and Dragons terms. I don't know if that's chaotic good or lawful evil, but it definitely is a different aspect.
Well, you're going to find a happy medium between the two, and I'm not sure when those results are going to go up. But where can people find SCW and the UGWC?
Okay, so the website for UGWC, I guess they used to be a different Fed, so their website actually doesn't make much sense with the name. But they can be found at let me try that again. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
They can be found at giwtwisted.proboards.com.
And also on Twitter at UGWC, so that's fairly straightforward.
Yeah, I'm still getting used to the Twitter. I went 20-something years without touching anything like that, and I've only started using it the past couple years. But Sin City Wrestling, they can be found at scwrestling.net. And I believe the Twitter handle is Sin City Wrestling with no G and then the number 1.
I've got SC Wrestling 1. But then
SC Wrestling, yeah. Sorry. I'm sorry, whoever's in charge.
No, but you got the website. You do have the website correct, scwrestling.net. So check them out, Sin City Wrestling and the UGWC. You can find them on Twitter, and they've got links right to their Feds homepages. So definitely check those out. Otherwise, Ken, let's hit your highlights of your career. What else have you, over the last 26 years? What are some of the major Feds that you've been in? What are some of the major highlights of Ken Davison's career?
Well, trying to go in chronological order, I would say one of the highlights was, and this was so many years ago, but I was in High Octane Wrestling, and there I ran a character, same character, but I was running through a different form of psychosis with the character, I guess you could say.
Okay.
And I was running under the name Ken Oddity, who was basically, I guess, Crazy Steve in terms of look.
Okay.
Would be a good comparison. And the character was running around claiming that he was being chased by evil outer space penguins or something like that, and Republicans.
Oh, and Republicans, yes.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure I know, and I'm guilty of gimmick infringement. There was a guy, and I wish I could remember his name, that ran a similar gimmick. I saw him at a charity show once, and it was just like, this is insane. I love it.
There's nothing
And
wrong
I
with building a character.
bit of,
Yeah.
I had highs and lows there. I wasn't there very long, but I mean, the crew there was just, they're amazing writers. I mean, I remember very vividly Chris Kostoff, Max Kale. I know that they're up and running again. I don't believe Lee Best is in charge anymore.
He is.
But he was when I was there.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, he is. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Because when the tweet went out listing High Octane on my resume, someone else was like, he's not on my payroll.
I think that's another in-character deal.
So, yeah, I didn't realize Lee was still in charge. But, I mean, at that point in my life, I just had too much going on. I couldn't keep up with the workload that I would have needed to keep competitive. And, I mean, it's just, they were always solid. They had their high octane wrestling. They were really ahead of the game in a lot of ways. So my time there is definitely a highlight. There's another Fed I was in that it was a highlight, but I don't speak its name. All I will say is the man that was in charge of the Fed ended up getting arrested for illegal child-related things. And
whoa. Yeah, so I don't blame you.
So that, I don't mention it by name, but I spent a few years there as well, and that's a highlight because I started working with and met my friend Jim there. He handles Mac Bain, who is the Sin City World Champion right now. Cheap plug.
At SC Wrestling One.
Yep. And so we're running together there in a stable called the Saviors. But that's another one that's almost a 20-year friendship. And just, we've crossed paths intentionally and unintentionally so many times over the years. We've been friends, we've been rivals, and it's very much on a level, I'd say you could almost compare it to like The Undertaker and Kane in terms of the dynamic of the matches, and we've always been very evenly matched.
And longevity, apparently, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot more fun working with him than against him, I'll say that much.
Mm-hmm.
Another highlight for me, I mean, I talked about it because it's been a big character arc, was my time in Carnage, and which has transitioned to UGWC directly. But I think one of my biggest highlights and one of the things I'm actually most proud of is kind of peeling back the curtain a little. I have a daughter who she just turned 13. And every year, UGWC does a massive melee, which is their Royal Rumble.
Okay.
And this year, the way they set up the format was you had a 250-word limit to set up an outline of what you would have said in your promo.
Oh.
And so my daughter actually took part and submitted an outline.
There you go.
And, I mean, she did well enough that she dumped someone over the top rope, and it took the world champ to eliminate her character. So I don't know if that was a sign that they were impressed or if it was just coincidental writing, but the fact that I got to, I was in that match too, so I got to kind of share a moment with my kid. That was really cool.
That is really cool, and you're probably the first person on here who's now, I've heard, hey, my dad wrestled, and now he's getting me into it, but I've not heard, I'm e-wrestling and I've got my child into it. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and that's one thing, and I'm going to kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge here, but I've noticed classic wrestling.
Classic-wrestling.com.
Yeah, I sent him a message over Twitter. It's like,
Oh,
my daughter, she's looking to keep doing it. They're looking for something that's strictly match talk, 750 words. That's something that I feel like my kid and I could both handle picking up. So if they're looking, I heard they were looking for face characters. So
they certainly
nudge,
are
nudge.
looking for babyface characters. So let's do some talking after the show. So no, well, at classic-wrestling.com. Cheap plug. All right. Good deal. Well, Ken, what else we got for Godly Ken Davison? First of all, amazing that you've handled the same character for 26 years. You're up there with some of the top longest one character guests I've had on the show. How do you evolve a character over 26 years to keep relevant, keep fresh enough that even you want to write it?
That's a tough one. I think a lot of it has been, I've worked in a lot of my real life experiences into the character. And you can't stop being yourself. So that gives you plenty of material. And just to think about kind of where I was when I started the character. And, I did take a couple years off with the character because I had a heart attack when I was 41. I'm 44 now.
Sorry to hear that, brother.
I'm still here. It's fine.
Yeah, right?
I have no complaints.
Right.
I'm on the right side of the dirt. But I worked after I was recovered and able to start functioning again. I actually worked that into my character. So my debut promo in Carnage was me coming down, and with the amount of time I've got in the business, I was able to work it. So I started off with that comeback babyface pop, and I just worked it into no one's good enough to take me down. God couldn't even kill me, and it was.
That's a hell of a promo, yeah.
Yeah, like I'm gonna have a little bit of arrogance here. It's like, to me, it ranks right up there with that famous Mark Henry retirement swerve.
So good. So good.
Yeah, to quote Arn Anderson, I don't like to toot my own horn, but toot toot. that was some of my finest character work, and so yeah, it's just I think incorporating those real life elements. Another aspect, and I know the Twitter exchange was there where Mac Bain was mentioning Adina, which is my partner Kyra's daughter, and having been a step parent myself, a lot of my step parent experiences have been able to kind of parlay into our character development with things happening with the kid. And
yep.
So it's just, I think using what you know is the biggest key to making it work.
You're exactly right. When they say that the best wrestler is you turned up to 11. So using what you know is easily the guide into that. Well, let me ask you this question. Have you ever had another character that was an original character?
I've had a few over the years, just that I've run usually concurrently with Godly. One of the probably most major one was character I called Swingin' Sean Pollux. And it was basically with the whole backstory, Ken has a stepbrother. So it's like, okay, at the time I was in Steelside, they're like, and it was like, okay, we need a tag team. I've got this. And it was basically, even though I was running Godly still with that heel edge to a degree, Pollux was the pure white meat, fun baby face. I used CM Punk as a pick base because just those shorts, something about those shorts he wore at that time was like, okay, that's the look I want. And I guess he's very much like, in terms of his speaking style, like RVD or Riddle.
Okay.
But but without the drug use or the drug references.
I gotcha.
And I ran him for a good number of years, and he's still around always. And we wrote him off with Steelside. There was another character who had a manager, and it was like, okay, they got together and had a whole family. How'd that happen? And so that was just kind of how we wrote him off. And so I always have him like sitting there like, if you ever need help, bro. And he's fun to keep around.
He's poised and ready. Yeah.
There's another character I wrote. It was only for a short while, and can't remember the name of the Fed. It was XWF, not the one that exists today.
Yes, one of the other 100. Yeah.
And I ran a character by the name of the Polish Predator Alexei Madej.
Okay.
And in real life, I do have a stepbrother and my stepmom who are from Poland. And I actually, because I just wanted to try something different. And so instead of Godly, who's, 5'10", 220, and when I started, everybody was doing like 6'6", 7-foot characters, 300 pounds. And it's like, okay, I want to try a power character. And so it was my attempt at it. And to separate him, I tried typing with that Polish accent, and I did okay, but I didn't feel like the character had the depth to really get beyond the whole speaking gimmick.
You probably had a better grasp of the accent than anybody else would because you grew up around it or you had it around you. Whereas then you try to develop the character and, well, maybe it's a little too... Maybe you almost bleed too much Ken Davison into it.
I don't think that was the case.
No?
It was because I was fighting so hard to make him not what Ken Davison, the character, was.
I got you.
But I was just so lost that I didn't know what to do with him.
Yeah. So basically, Ken Davison has been the star of the show your whole career, and then you had a few side characters to go along with.
Yeah, that's the one other character I handled, and I can't. I had him in Carnage for a hot cup of coffee. Was a character by the name of the Demon of Sobriety, Dorian Hawkhurst.
Okay.
And he was very, very easy to run. I stumbled across the nickname, the Demon of Sobriety. I found an old thing on the Saturday Night Slam Masters video game. And what the Great Oni, the one Japanese character, that was his nickname.
Wow.
And I'm like, ooh, I can use this.
The Demon of Sobriety.
And so I built him up, a big, burly brawler character. Very similar in-ring style to somewhere between, I'd say, a Bray Wyatt or a Braun Strowman. Very, very powerful, very good brawler, very technically deficient.
Nice.
I think every character should have a flaw because I think it's a great writing tool.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I based him a lot on my personal life where I had him with a young daughter named Chloe, which is actually the name of my biological daughter. And that's one thing, too. My daughter has been listening to me writing because I do my RPs through talk to text. So my daughter has been very aware of this going back as long as she can remember. So I think her doing the massive melee was really not that surprising.
Not a big stretch, yeah.
No, she knows almost as much about my character as I do, I think.
She's heard it in audio form as we've read it.
But yeah, and just I started him. I ended up getting divorced, and I started him shortly after. And a lot of the out of character stuff was stuff I was dealing with my ex-wife, custody and whatnot. And I added that struggle of him being a recovering alcoholic to go with the nickname. And he would reference not so much the situations, but he would reference his struggles and his role plays, and even in front of the camera. And I ran I'd say I ran a pretty good record with them. I definitely won more than I lost, but I didn't do anything phenomenal. But it was just a very cathartic character to write.
Right. Something different and something you could write your experience through. Yeah,
because with the Godly character, after I killed off his valet, I spent 23 years of him intentionally being a loner. Walls built up, the whole nine. And I think in one role play I did recently, I referred to the first 23 years of his career as a bloodstained lost love letter to a lost lover.
Good summation.
And yeah, so it's definitely drawing on those experiences. I've had those fringe characters, but Davison is, like I said, it's me. It's who I wanted to portray. Had I not gotten hurt before I could finish my wrestling training, and so Godly Ken Davison is Ken Davison, just able to live his dream.
There you go. I like that. You get to do, unfortunately, what you couldn't through e-wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, and it's helped me. The writings helped me through a lot. Again, using those real life experiences. I've had a lot of stuff. My dad passed away a few months ago, and instead of taking time off, I incorporated it into my character development, because writing is what helps me get through. And I mean, there's other things I've experienced in life where I had an amputation last year that I can't work into my character, or else I'll be hopping around like Zach Gowen. But I mean, even then, I had my surgery, went up, ate dinner after surgery, and then started writing. And I don't even remember what match I had that week, but it's like I don't take time off because it's my therapy.
That's a beautiful way to look at it. And I did see your tweet and laughed out loud at Big Papa Stump.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm milking it for all I can. My wife, she gets so mad at me because I was looking for work, and I'm like, you think I'm overqualified for IHOP?
That's a great attitude to have. So no, that's good, and I'm glad that you can use e-wrestling as therapy for any of life's issues, because I too use it for the same reasons. I find happiness when I write. I find, I laugh. I have my friends laugh with me, and that's just, it's a great thing. It's amazing what e-wrestling will bring you besides competitiveness.
Yeah, the funny part is, I think, and it really began in Carnage when I started working with Amber Ryan. I had never encountered it before. Carnage Wrestling had a real vibe where more people were like, I'm not here to compete. Let's work together on this. And the more I worked with more writers, the better my writing became. And I mean, that collaborativeness and that fellowship you get through it is, I mean, I have it in UGWC, not so much in SCW because I'm still getting a feel of the lay of the land. But Jim McBain and I, we work together on things. Alex Jones, who is always in contention for their world championship, I had actually tagged with him briefly in a Fed many, many years ago, and I'm maybe peeling the curtain back again when I shouldn't, but I've reached out to him because I'd like to start doing something with him. So I'm looking for the right time to get that ball rolling. And at this point, it's like I went through my young competitive phase. I won plenty of titles in various feds. And for me, the only one that I've really been super competitive about wanting was the UGWC cooperative titles. Because Barb and I have been telling our character stories, me and Kyra Johnson, we're coming up on 2 years now, and we never really got to hold the Carnage tag belts. We had a title shot on the last show, and our opponents decided that they were going to no-show.
Ooh.
And so we made an effort, not an effort, but we had a conversation, and we decided that there was another tag team that had a match on the card. Their opponents no-showed. And they had always just, in their time in Carnage, they always kept their head down, did the right thing, put in solid work. And so we were awarded the tag team titles, and then we just said we don't want to keep them this way, and so we wrote the match with the other tag team
Great solution.
and put them over because, you know, Kyra and I had our singles moments. We didn't need to leave with belts, and it was nice for them to have their moment.
See, that's
So,
that's cooperative writing. That's angle storytelling. That's good stuff.
well, and the thing was, we didn't tell the other team, so they didn't even know they were getting the title shot.
Even better.
So we carried our team over to UGWC because we really wanted to hold belts together with all the writing we've done, and we just, as I said at the last pay-per-view, we managed to win those cooperative tag team titles, and it's not even that I wanted to, like, oh, I want to win. It's like I want to win them for Barb, because I mean I went through a lot of stuff in my time in Carnage, you know, with various sicknesses, COVID, and I mean she's been there, she's been a rock for the entire time I've known her, and just to be able to put forth that effort and win them for her, just it made me feel really good.
That's awesome. So what else we got to cover in Ken Davison's career?
At this point, I don't know. It's a matter of just waiting to see what happens. I've been doing this so long. I've been ready to quote unquote retire for 10, 15 years now, probably. So I mean, but as long as I've still got people I enjoy writing with, as long as it's still fun, I'm sure I'll be around in some capacity. I mean, especially if my daughter, you know, decides to pick this up on a more permanent basis. I feel like that it's kind of my job to be a mentor to her and try to give her pointers. And I mean, there's things she's given me that I've used in my role plays, and like so she has the mind for it. I was sitting there and I was talking about how I was better than someone, and she's like, "You should tell them that they need an elevator to get to your level." I'm like, "Oh yes, that's there."
Yeah, she's bringing the birds from school. I love it.
Oh yeah, she keeps telling me I need to ask people if they were born by the highway because that's where most accidents happen. So she definitely, we work on the maturity level. She could definitely burn a few people, especially if we get into classic wrestling where it's strictly match talk. I think she could have a future doing it.
There's a lot of room for someone with burns like that. So. All right, man. Well, hey, let's hit these Twitter questions before we wrap this up. So I got Twitter and a couple on Discord. So we got at WWJBCD, Canada's greatest manager. Hi, Johnny H here, first-time listener, long-time caller. My question for Mr. D is, did you ever have a gimmick before your current one?
Well, I touched on it at the beginning, but
La
yes,
Parka.
the godly character, as I said, did go through that tons of fun phase, and every once in a while, people who know about it, like, you should bring that back. So I went through that. I did the Ken Oddity thing. So I've had a couple different gimmicks, but godly has been it for the last 25 years.
Awesome. At Hero High Spot, tacos or burritos, good sir?
I would probably have to say tacos. I live in Colorado, and we have a very thriving Mexican community in the area. And there's this taco truck. It's 2.5 blocks from my house. They're open till 2:30 in the morning, and they have the best street tacos.
Oh, street tacos are terrific. Terrific. I'm a big fan. Over on the Discord machine, we got not active enough for the top 100. Why is Brock so rude? Any idea?
I just always took it as he wanted his personal time to be his personal time. I'm assuming we mean Lesnar, because that's the only Brock I really know. Other than Brock Anderson, who's like his dad with no personality.
See? One of the other guys. Come on. Uh, I just want to know when y'all are releasing the Adina shirt, a little extra entry from Bane_Mac on Twitter.
Yep. That's what we were talking about. Oh, in character, that child has a big enough ego that it would be a bad idea right now. But if Barb and I write the characters long enough and we're still going when Adina's 18, it could happen.
You'd love to see it. Also on Discord, we got Meg. What do you think of the current state of e-fetting? Has it gotten better or worse over time?
Well, I think like anything, it's had its ups and downs. I mean, I look back and I forgot to mention it earlier, but trying to prep for this to remember things. I found my name on the 1998 RSPWF Top 200.
Oh, right. Yes.
So yeah, that's number 130. I still remember how proud I was of that at the time. And I see a lot of names there that I worked with and I really enjoyed working with. But there's been a lot of feds too, where I've just seen a lot of toxic stuff go down. I think on the whole, especially now where you have opponents being more collaborative, as I've mentioned, I think that the state of the game, the writing's gotten better, the collaboration's gotten better. So I think it's just a matter of finding the right out of character or locker room atmosphere, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
But I think on the whole, things are better today than they were back then.
Great answer. I have to agree. Any advice that you would give someone who's just starting e-wrestling? Well, I guess you do have someone who's just starting e-wrestling. What advice are you giving?
Try to come up with a game plan before you start writing, but do not set it in stone.
Good one. Yep.
Just give yourself a direction, not a destination.
There you go.
Because I don't know how many times I've started where I've had this idea and then I'll be in the middle of writing and I'll hear something or I'll see something or even
you're
when
just
I've been
changing. Yeah.
Yeah, even when I've been taking college classes, I've encountered something doing an accounting class. And I'm like, hold on. So know where you want to go, but not necessarily how you want to get there.
That's a great advice because you start writing something and you can get halfway in and then realize, oh, I know a better way to take this. And it's completely different. So it's good stuff. And hope it goes well for your daughter. And we'll talk about Classic. At Uncle Jay on Discord, what's your favorite show that you've been a part of in e-wrestling?
Oh, I mean, there's been quite a few over the years. Definitely, I already mentioned the Steelside Wrestling, their last show, Carnage Wrestling last show, the UGWC Massive Melee. I will take that in my heart to the grave. I think those would be my top three. I've done a couple memorial shows, and I don't want to say favorites because, when you lose a friend, it's bittersweet.
Right.
But it's always nice when you can honor somebody as well.
And you remember those. You remember those shows. You remember the effort you put in. You remember the people that you associated it with. Yeah. What about the least favorite shows you've been a part of?
I mean, I can't think of any quote unquote shows that I would very specifically say I didn't like being a part of. I mean, there was, as I said, that one Fed I don't like to mention where everything except that person was enjoyable about it. I made a number of good friends there, did a lot of good writing, but that's just, in light of what happened, just soured me on all of it.
It's hard to argue that. Makes total sense. So, again, that's what we got from the crowd. That's what we got for the interview. This has been fun. I appreciate you taking the time, doing the interview, and sitting with us for an hour.
Well, I'm glad to do it, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell my story.
It's been a good one, and I've seen your name around for a long time. I've been following you for a long time. Check out Ken over on Twitter at Godly Ken Davison. You can find him again over at UGWC and at SC Wrestling 1. That's where he's handling currently. And he's also all over the history of e-wrestling for the last 26 years. Really, really cool. Thanks, Ken, for doing this, and appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, no problem. It was my pleasure.
All right, everybody, we're back. What a fun interview with Ken. Ken was a great guy, and now, Brian, spoiler alert, applying to classic-wrestling.com. There it is. I had to get one in somewhere. Check out Ken over at Classic. Check him over at UGWC. Check him at SC Wrestling 1 on Twitter. Sin City Wrestling, that's where he is playing the game right now. And a very nice guy and a very good interview. So I hope you guys enjoyed it like I did. Otherwise, I hope everyone is going to have a great St. Patrick's Day.
Oh,
In just a few, it's a week from today as we record this, Brian. It's 2 days post public posting of this podcast. So
Yeah,
I hope each.
generally is the day that I refer to as, much like New Year's Eve, is amateur hour.
Where all the amateurs go out and play. So there you have it, guys. I hope each and every one of you have a great St. Patrick's Day. Be safe, have fun, and enjoy the Irish spirit.
Yeah,
they say.
I mean, if it's green beer, I guess you're okay. But green anything else, don't drink that
Hey,
shit.
it's cheap.
Is it?
Green beer is usually cheap. I don't know.
Well-
Those are like the dollar beers or whatever when you go to the bar.
Man, I've been to one. I went to Savannah at like 17.
All right, guys, have a great St. Patrick's Day. Tune in next time for the EFED podcast.
You know what?
Episode 90. What?
You know what's fucked up? I'm mostly Irish. I just got my 23andMe back.
See, there you have it. But check us out next time, and we're going to learn a lot more about Brian and his 23andMe, because it's the Brian interview here on the EFED podcast. Killer transition, Brian. I love that that little sneak in there. Guys, spoiler alert, this is the first time here on the podcast, Brian, I'm both wearing sleeves, and I got the Mr. McMahon haircut.
Oh shit,
Mr. McMahon.
McMahon. I don't
There
know.
you go.
I don't know. I think from here on out, just to promote the show because it's a good show, I'm gonna call it the Peacemaker haircut.
The Peacemaker haircut. I like it.
John Cena.
The old John Cena. You can't see my haircut.
Can't see it. Hey, anyone who has not watched that show, go watch it. HBO Max. Good show.
There you have it, Brian, slinging the recommendations your way.
And I hate John Cena, so great show.
All right, guys, check it out. Check us out next time live. Check us out on twitch.tv/the EFED podcast. Make sure you hit that follow button, subscribe if you're feeling froggy. We would appreciate the support. Otherwise, you can check us out on patreon.com/EFED podcast. We would appreciate your support there if you'd like to do that. Check us out on Twitter. Check us out, EWTs.com, EFEDTs.com.
Jackam.
Either or will get you to the place to be. And any questions otherwise, you can jump in our Discord from the Twitter link in the profile, and you can chat with each and every one of us and everybody else in there. So, guys, check it out. Until next time, for Brian, I'm Mikey. This is the EFED podcast, where the wrestling is written, but the characters are real.
There it is.
You've been listening to the Effect Podcast, only on the Atomic Dropcast Network, presented commercial free on Patreon.
Jackam.
Panera. Brian, if you're listening to this, you're the best. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. No matter what might
I like the Fed podcast. Two idiots